Um, okay, it's good to see everyone here today. It's always nice to see faces from up here. Um, so I shared those quotes in the reading today because they're very much what I would call some of my the anchor quotes of my faith, if that makes sense. I call them anchor quotes because they very much form a part of my like faith system and beliefs, right? And I remember at one point, as an exercise when I was reading Hundoke, I had a book, a notebook, and any quote that I thought was really interesting, I'd write it down. And that way I had like my own quote book so that of quotes that like really impacted me and touched me. So instead of having to like reread a whole speech, or I could just go through my own notebook and kind of find like the ones that resonated with me the most. I have to find my quote book. But these were always one of them. And I remember this idea, especially because I grew up on the East Coast of America. So you're talking about like 3,000 miles to San Francisco. And I always remember that concept really stuck with me. Like if I really needed to go to San Francisco, could I walk there, right? And I think I've told this story before, but once I was trying to visit a friend, and I didn't he kind of lived way out in the middle of nowhere, so I took like the train as far as it would go, and then I was like trying to see if there were buses. This was all before Google Maps and everything, so there were no buses. So I had looked up on a physical map how to get there, and so I just started walking. Right, it was probably going to be like a 6 hour walk to his house. um and to walk there, I had to go on a highway. So I was walking onto the highway and a cop pulled me over. He's like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "I'm walking to my friend's house." He's like, "You can't walk on the highway, you idiot." So I had to like go back and call him, and he came and picked me up and stuff. But he was very busy. So originally he was like, I can't meet you. Like, you'll have to come to me somehow. So it was just but it's because I had that kind of concept in my mind. Like if I really need to do something, I just have to be able to do whatever it takes, right? Even just start walking in that direction. So, but I mentioned these quotes and this kind of idea of anchor quotes because I wanted to talk about this process of building up our life of faith and and our decision to have a life of faith. Because um, I think especially in our church and in our movement, especially because it's so against, let's say, the culture around us, that every person has to make a very conscious decision, right? If we look at all the first gen when they joined the movement, they really had to decide they were going to do it, right? It was very much a commitment to become a part of True Parents' providence and True Parents' work, right? And even for second gen, because again, for us, there has to come a point where we decide, actually, this is what we want to do, and this is what we want to believe, right? Um, and I don't think that's true for everyone. I think a lot of people do have a kind of passive life of faith, especially if it's what everyone else is doing, if it's just the culture of the country, then it's kind of very easy to not have to make a choice, to kind of do what's comfortable, kind of follow along. And you have a lot of people that are kind of culturally religious, right? And I've seen this many times in many countries. Even in Islamic countries, you have people that are culturally Muslim, right? They do their traditions because everyone else does, and they're comfortable with it, right? So I think we have a bit of I think that choice though is very important because it's very conscious and it's very intentional, and it kind of forces us to make that kind of determination about what we want to do and why we want to do it, right? And it's um and I think an important part about that decision is that the decision is actually, in a way, the surface level part of that process of building up our life of faith. And what I mean by surface level is I have my reasons, right? That I decided to join the church. And I've shared my testimony a couple of times, and there were things that um there are like specific points I could mention. Oh, this reason, I had this realization, I had this experience, I had this um this is why I think this makes more sense than this, right? So there's all these reasons we can explain why we choose something. But I think there's something much deeper, and that comes down to not just the decision, but the actual kind of motivation and determination under the decision. And I think that's a lot more personal and that's a lot harder to articulate, right? Because I think people can make the same decision, but for many, many different reasons, right? And there's different kind of motivating factors for why they made that decision. And for that reason, I think it's very hard to articulate. But I think what it comes down to is people make a decision and a determination about the type of person they want to be and the type of way they want to live, the type of world they want to live in, right? And I think that's actually the decision and determination being made. And then, the decision to follow the church culture, tradition, to follow true parents and to what capacity. I think that's kind of then, well, I think that will be the best way to accomplish for me to become that type of person, right? So in my testimony, I've explained that one of the crucial factors when I was 17, praying and reflecting about Father's life, was I kept coming back to the story of Father in Hung Nam. And I kind of was, to me, it was a very conscious decision that actually that's the type of person I want to be, right? That was kind of my determination, the underlining motivation. And there were other things that happened then that kind of reaffirmed that kind of confirmed the direction I was going in. But it was kind of that pivotal decision around, I want to be this kind of person. I want to live in this way, right? So last week we heard kind of Conal give a testimony. Also, actually, before that, Doyle gave a testimony on New Year's Eve. Not as many people heard that. I don't think we filmed it or anything. But it's very kind of inspiring to see, because I can kind of see that the younger brothers and sisters going through the same kind of process, right? Going through this process of finding their faith and deciding their faith and deciding what is actually the most things that are most important for them and how they live their life, right? And they're kind of finding their faith and finding their determination. And this is, another example of this. I hear this in almost every single first gen testimony about how they joined the church. There's really a moment where they decide, like, this is why I want to do this. I remember my dad in his testimony, one of the first things, you do is you join a fundraising team in the 70s, right? So they put you out in your fundraising. And he was in New York City, and it was a miserable rainy day, right? And the captain just dropped him off for 8 hours and was like, I'll come back in 8 hours. And he's just like a brand new member out in the rain trying to sell stuff. And he was kind of praying, and he was like, why am I doing this, right? Do I really want to do this? And like, could I do this every day for the rest of my life? That was a question he was like reflecting on. And his answer to that and his kind of determination in that moment was like, yes, like, this is really what I believe in. If this is what it takes, to do God's will, this is what it takes to follow true parents, then I'll do this every day for the rest of my life. Now, luckily, he didn't have to. He managed to get married and have a family. So it was a happy ending. But the reason I give that example is what I'm trying to say is that this decision of faith is in many ways a determination, right? It's our determination of what kind of people we want to be. And I think that then when we make that determination, it kind of impacts us and stays with us. Now, of course, that determination can change. You can have new experiences, things happen. But I feel like it's very hard to change a determination that strong when you make that kind of decision, right? And in my own life, that determination has been kind of the stabilizing factor, right? When things get difficult, when my faith goes up or my faith goes down, right? It's that kind of determination I had when I made a decision. I want to be this kind of person. I want to live this type of way, right? And then the reason I follow the church is because I believe, well, for this reason, that's the best way to do that, right? I hope that's clear. It's not, if someone could come along, and I've thought about this a lot, what would it take for me to convert to another religion, right? If someone could come along and show me a method and a path that would make me a better person and make me live a better way, then I would take it, right? And I remember Father said this once. He said, please, if anyone can show me an easier path to accomplish the same thing, to create an ideal world, please tell me, because I'd be happy to do it. I really want to do an easier path than the one I'm on, right? So it's yeah, so I'm kind of taking this angle of the determination because I think there's a difference between the determination and the underlying motive we have with the kind of decisions that we make. And I've been reflecting a lot about this because I kind of keep coming back to my younger self, right? Who was very idealistic and who was very determined to save the whole world, right? And then sometimes that's very much in contrast with everyday reality, right? Where, you got bills to pay and people are annoying and it's like really hard to like be open with people and share with people. And some people take advantage of you, right? So it's like, but all that doesn't actually change my first determination to try to save the whole world and make everyone happy, right? It's like it's still there and it's still strong. And there were experiences along the way that just helped reinforce that and make that stronger. So there was two reasons that I wanted to talk about this today, and one of them was I was last week on a business trip, and I met kind of an old second gen friend, and because it's recorded and I don't want to say their name, but you can ask me afterwards. I'm happy to share more about it. But it was we hadn't seen each other in a while. We both have families. He's 2 years younger than me. So we sat down and we're very happy to see each other, right? Because we're old friends. And we talked a little bit about faith. And I was like, how are things, right? Where are you in your faith? He's like, oh, I tell everyone I'm still a hardcore Mooney, right? And I could tell that he was now he says that, but he's in a very isolated community in the sense that, he's not going to church every week. He's like, I don't really know what mother's up to. And, but I could tell that he was just so kind of grounded in his own faith. Like he knew why he does what he does, right? And his faith wasn't determined based on like what other people say or do. It's just like he's like, I really believe in the blessing. I believe in, I believe in the principle. I believe in your parents. So it's just I could feel that from him, right? And we were also talking about, me being national leader in Ireland, and he's asking like kind of explaining the pros and the cons, the good and the bad. And he asked me at one point, you know, um, why do you do it? It sounds like a lot of work. And I've been asked that before. And every time I'm asked that, actually, I feel like I can very confidently answer because I genuinely believe in it, right? I genuinely believe in true parents' providence as a bigger providence, and the quote there is talking about like the mainstream of God's providence, right? And how we're all like struggling to try to join it in our own kind of tributaries, right? And I really believe that. I really believe in our community, and it's not about the position. And I've said this before as well. It's even if I didn't have a position, I feel like I still have to give that same amount of commitment and heart and time to to our community, to our efforts to try to move the providence forward, right? So um so yeah, just when you asked me that question, it was like I wouldn't say it was a test, but it was like I was very happy to see that like I didn't hesitate in answering. It's like, no, I really do believe in what your parents are doing. I believe in our members. I believe in the blessing. I believe in the providence of restoration, right? That determination, that desire to accomplish those things is still very much there. Um, and and then the other reason I wanted to kind of talk about this point a bit was a large part of this journey of my faith had to do with some key moments of prayer. And I mentioned that because today we're going to be doing a prayer visual, and also 2 weeks from now, we're going to have the Chumbo event, which will also be very much focused on prayer and kind of spiritual growth and kind of connecting with spirit world more strongly. And um, and I'd say, if I can give a small confession and be honest, I don't really pray enough, right? And oftentimes I feel when I'm praying, I'm kind of just reading the points, right? Or just kind of listing things to pray about. But there were 3 times in my life where I really felt my prayer was almost like a challenge to God. Like I was risking something, and I was being incredibly sincere. And my prayer was along the lines of like, if this prayer isn't answered, um, I might stop, right? I might give up, or I might leave, or something will change, because I need to know this answer. I need to know it. Otherwise, I can't continue, and I can't continue following this path. Um, and so because Kona was kind of sharing about fundraising, and Doyle was as well, it really reminded me, one of those prayers was while I was on STF. And so I kind of just wanted to share that to kind of give this context as well. Because the thing about fundraising is, in the theory, it's meant to be a very spiritual activity, right? You're really trying to serve God's providence, and you're trying to feel spirit world working with you. But on the other hand, it's a very external thing, right? You're kind of going door to door and trying to sell something, right? So it's a very powerful kind of dynamic, and it's very easy to be skeptical of it. And I remember I came off a condition, and I came back to the workshop. I had a really rough condition, and I had set this goal, right? And I hadn't made the goal, which happens sometimes. And but it was very hard to accept that the goal was a reflection of my heart, or a reflection of my spiritual commitment, right? Because that's the theory. The theory is, you're not just setting a goal, you're setting a challenge for spirit world to work with you, and for God to work with you. And so I was being very skeptical, and I was like, it's just money, right? I had this kind of attitude. And it created a small crisis in my faith, because obviously, True Father had set up this system, and he was trying to use it as a way to train us about the power of spirit world. And he has lots of speeches that we're reading about the connection between spirit world and how we fundraise, and the attitude we have when we're fundraising. And yet on the other side, I had this attitude like, I don't really want to do this, and I don't see the point, right? And so it really is like, so I was praying very sincerely about this. We have a little prayer room. I don't think we own the Schmitten house anymore, but for those who have been there, we were in Schmitten and have a little prayer room. And I was sitting in the prayer room praying about this point, and I was like, okay, I don't think I really did give 100% of my heart and my effort. So it's hard for me to claim that it doesn't work if I didn't really try. And so I had this prayer. I was like, okay, this next condition coming up, this is spiritual life or death, right? Like I just put everything I cared about, everything that mattered, into this very external thing. I said, all right, I'm going to set this goal that I feel is hard for me to accomplish, and I'm going to do everything to accomplish it. I'm going to skip lunch. If I don't hit it, I'm going to ask the captain to go out for an extra blitz run, a fundraising. Like it's going to be all or nothing. And if I can't even do this, I kind of took this approach. If I can't even do this one thing where I hit this goal and I put my whole 100% effort into it, then how am I going to do anything else, right? How am I going to succeed in the blessing? How am I going to raise a family? How am I going to change people's hearts? How am I going to witness? Like if I can't even meet this one criteria, right? So it's either I do this and I succeed, or I failed at everything. I was being like, this was like how serious I was. It was one of the most serious prayers I've ever had. And I'm almost a little embarrassed because it sounds melodramatic, but I think even in the prayer, I was like, I'd rather die than fail at this, right? Like I was being that kind of serious about it. And so I went into the next condition like so serious that I don't even know if I was like laughing or smiling at any jokes. I had this weird like super focus. And I remember I was tested on the first day, right? Because on the first day, we were driving to the location, and they have this like, they just drop you off for an hour. It's called off condition, right? And you just go out for an hour, you set a goal, but it's really, I'm pretty sure, so that the captain can go buy shopping or something and drop everyone off, right? So they're not in the way. So we go out for the hour, and I set a goal, and I don't make it. I come back into the van, and I'm just like, I told myself I would ask to go back out if I didn't hit my goal, but this doesn't even count, right? It's off condition. It's not part of my like target or goal or anything. So I could already feel myself being like, do you really need to like like, you can take a break this time. I was like, no, I can't, right? I promised myself I'd be serious. I asked the captain to go out again, right? It's like, and I could see she was almost annoyed that I asked. She was like, what? Like, you're gonna make us late or whatever, right? Like, she didn't say that though. She's like, okay. And then she dropped me off. And I'll always remember another brother was like, I'll go too. Um, and it was like, it was so heartwarming because I felt like supported somehow, right? It was like a sign that I was doing the right thing. And then I went out and had a great blitz and I completely crushed even what I thought was possible. And it was like, it kind of goes back to that quote, the determination you make at the beginning is really what matters. Because from that day, I just felt like I couldn't fail, right? It was like the blessing for the whole, I thought I would have to suffer the whole condition through and maybe at the end succeed. But really, it was like from day one, it was like a test, that off condition. It was so clear afterwards. Like it was a test. And if I had failed it, I would have struggled through the whole condition. But it really like answered my prayer in such a clear way. And then I still was serious. I still skipped lunch. I would still go out. I would still ask for extra runs and things like that. But it was like I felt God's blessing on me like every day. And it was, again, it was one of these anchor experiences, right? And like I said, I've only had that kind of sincere prayer 3 times. And each time it's changed my life of faith. It's changed my life. It's made me, it's become an anchor into my experiences with spirit world, with God, with my life of faith, right? And um, so the conclusion I want to make is, why we have to make a determination when we make a choice. And people can make the same choice, but their determinations will be different. It's based on their own background. It's based on the things that matter to them, right? And it's not what I've come to really think about a lot and realize is that when you're trying to talk to people and understand people and help people, that's a very important part of them that you have to understand. Not what they say and do, which you can kind of see and it's easy to judge and misjudge. But what's really hard to get at, and which I really try to get better at doing, is understanding what their real determination is, what their real motivation is, what their real kind of direction is. And also I think that for a lot of people, the answer is they don't have a very clear determination, or they don't have a very clear direction, or they're still figuring that out, right? Because it's not guaranteed. It takes time and it takes experience and it takes challenges to kind of test if you really actually believe in something and you really want to go in that direction. So again, that's why I was very inspired to hear the testimonies from. Actually, I'm always inspired to hear testimonies because that always comes through as people's experience and how that shapes what matters to them and what they're focused on and what they care about. So my kind of concluding thoughts is, we're having these kind of 2 very spiritual events today and in 2 weeks' time. We might have it on the Saturday. I still have to figure out if we're able to have it on the Sunday because of when the link expires. But it's a chance, especially for the younger brothers and sisters, but for everyone, to kind of really challenge your faith, really challenge your determination and your motivation, right? To really, if you pray with that kind of sincerity, where you're really putting your heart on the line, you can solve very specific problems you're having in your life, right? And again, it's not something you can do every day. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's something I've done 3 times in my life, right? Where really my prayers were almost like challenging God. One of my other prayer experiences is I told God, like, I need to make a decision. If I make the wrong one, you have to tell me because then it's not my fault. Like, I'm asking for help here, right? So I really want to make the right decision. I really want to do your will. And if I fail at that, like, you really can't blame me. I'm trying here, right? You better tell me I made the wrong decision. It's your fault. I actually said that in the prayer, right? And that's exactly what happened. I made the wrong decision, and God told me it was the wrong decision. And it was such a like, it was such a powerful, like, to me, experience of prayer, where I made the wrong decision. And then when God showed me it was the wrong decision, it was very, very clear why it was the wrong decision, like which assumptions I had made and which parts of my character were being selfish to kind of go in that direction versus the other direction, right? So what I'm saying is, you know, prayer is like something we do every day, and it becomes very easy to make it like, and it's an important part of life of faith. I'm not saying stop praying, but like it's important that we're sincere. And it's important at times to really challenge ourselves and try to um, really get to the heart of who we are and what we believe in. And I feel, that's always very, very important. That again, it's hard to articulate why we do what we do. And as we get older, obviously that gets harder to change because we've put ourselves down a path and we've reinforced that path. And, we're in some ways happy with that path because we chose it, and we chose it at each step of the way, right? And I don't think I'm not all for like everyone having a midlife crisis and completely changing everything they believe, right? We believe what we believe because that works for us, right? And I really believe people are all doing their best and really trying to find happiness and do God's will, right? But especially for the younger guys, it's the determination you make now in this age will kind of determine what you look like when you're 40 and 50 and 60, right? So it's a crucial part of this time of your kind of life of faith journey, right? And I think even for us older people, I know I'm the youngest of the old people, but I'm still old now. There's always a chance to kind of deepen or get more to the core of why we do what we do, and really try to think with our current circumstances, what can we do better? How can we really deepen our lives of faith? So I just encourage everyone to take the opportunity to really pray deeply, right? Not to just pray for points, but to pray in a way that can change your life. And that's a scary thing to do, but it's also like such a beautiful thing if you can do it. To pray in a way that actually changes the direction of your life, or changes the depth of your faith, or changes the understanding of your relationship with the world and the relationship around you. And I think all of us have things that are difficult that we could use with a very powerful prayer that would change that, right? That could solve it, that could heal it, or that could give us the insight that we need. And yeah, I think people, kind of like with me with the fundraising, going back to that example, I just felt if I showed up and I did it and I had a positive attitude, that I would be successful. But sometimes it takes actually more than that, and I think prayer is something, we do, and we're sincere, and we do it every day, and we really pray. But sometimes it takes a bit of risk, right? Something much deeper, something more, putting more of it on the line. So that's what I want to share today. As always, I'm very grateful that you guys were listening. Hopefully you were listening. And hopefully there was some element that was useful for your own personal lives of faith and journeys. And with that, I would like to welcome everyone to join me in prayer.